John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, my name is John Ulzheimer, and I'm a consumer credit expert. I've been in the credit industry for almost 30 years. I've spent time at FICO, the company that invented the FICO credit scoring system, and also with Equifax, which is one of the three generally recognized consumer credit reporting agencies. Today we're talking about dates. And the reason this is important is because there are a variety of dates that appear on credit reports and also credit report disclosures, and they don't necessarily always mean the same thing as you may think. And some of the dates are considered in credit scoring systems, some of the dates are not considered in credit scoring systems. The commonly present dates, and then explain what they all mean and the relevance of them. So before we get started, it's important to draw a line of demarcation between the two styles of credit reports that are common in the credit environment and also in the consumer environment. The first is the credit report disclosure, and that is a credit report that is formatted and provided to consumers. You can get from any of the credit bureau's websites. They're the reports that are formatted, they're easy to read, they've got color coding, they've got legends that explain what all the different dates and fields and characters mean. These reports have one purpose and one purpose only: to provide disclosure to a consumer. These reports are never, ever used for lending purposes. There are very few things that are definitives in the world of credit reporting and credit scoring. This is one of them. That is that disclosures are never used by lenders for anything. They're not even provided to lenders. The second type of credit report is the type that actually is provided to lenders for the purposes of risk assessment, for example, when you apply for something, and also the credit reports that are actually scored. Those are commonly and formally referred to as credit reports. And I realize that we kind of use the term credit report to encompass all of these different styles of credit reports, but if you wanted to use kind of hyper accurate a way to describe them, one is a credit report disclosure, consumers, one is a credit report, users, like banks and credit card issuers. So as we go through this, I want you to please keep that in mind, because some of these dates are going to appear on one of those types of credit reports, while not necessarily the other type of credit report. So let's go ahead and we'll go from the top down. Date opened. When you apply for a loan or a credit card, if that particular application has been approved, the lender is going to open an account for you, and then you'll be what's called onboarded or booked. That's kind of a formal way of describing an account opening. The date on the credit report, called date opened, is going to represent that date. This date shows up on both styles of credit reports that we've talked about, disclosures and then the reports used by lenders. This is an important date for credit scoring for a couple of reasons. Number one, credit scores take an average of the age of the accounts on your credit report. The older that average, obviously, the better it is for your score. Credit scores also consider the oldest account on the credit report to kind of set the age of the report. So to the extent that you've got an account that's been open for 2 decades, obviously that's going to be very helpful, and that's represented by the date opened. As it pertains to third-party collections and third-party collections only, so these are the organizations that are hired by your creditors to attempt to collect debts from you because you're not paying them. So it's those guys. The date opened on a third-party collection account is going to represent the date the original creditor assigned the debt to the collection agency for collection activities. And so let me give you an example. Let's say that you opened an apartment lease or took out an apartment lease in January of 2020. That's the date that you opened essentially your lease. And let's say that you defaulted on that lease. Either you trashed your apartment or you didn't make payments and you went into default. The property manager hired a collection agency in January of 2021 to collect the debt for you. The debt was assigned to the debt collector was January of 2021. So on your credit report, the date opened of the collection is going to be, in fact, January of 2021. That's important because credit scores will use that date to determine how old the collection is. This does not apply to trade lines, okay? So this issue of date opened and the assignment is only relevant to debt collectors. Next date, the date of first delinquency. Super important. There are multiple pages in the credit reporting standards manual dedicated to how to figure out this date. That's how important it is. This date has one meaning and a variety of uses. The date of first delinquency, or DOFD is how it's commonly written, indicates the date of the most recent late payment that led to a default. And I know that's kind of hard to visualize what that means, so let me give you an example. If you were 30 days late in January of 2020 and then never cured, you went 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180 default and never brought the account back current, then the date of first delinquency is going to be that oldest 30-day delinquency from January of 2020. So on your credit report, your DOFD in the example I just gave you will be January of 2020. All right? So why is that important? It's important for two reasons. Number one, credit scoring systems are going to use this date to determine the age of derogatory trade lines, not derogatory collection accounts, derogatory trade lines. Number two, the credit reporting agencies are going to use this date to start the 7-year clock for credit reporting from that date. So this date is also kind of referred to informally as the trigger date, the anchor date. Some people even call it the date of last activity. But what it really is, it's the date from which the 7-year clock begins ticking. It's the purge from date, okay? These are both Metro 2 fields, which means that they are actually fields that a creditor or a collector can report to a credit bureau and can investigate, and these dates actually appear on credit reports used by lenders. The next two dates are not. Date of last activity. A date of last activity has commonly appeared on disclosure style credit reports for a long time. The problem is in Metro 2, there is no such thing as a date of last activity. It simply doesn't exist, so I can save you the time looking for it because you're not going to find it. But it is true that the date of last activity does show up, or a date represented as the date of last activity does show up on the disclosure style credit reports. But this date has no influence in your credit scores, and it's not even seen by lenders, all right? The last one is date of status. Date of status is a date that appears on Experian disclosure credit reports. It's not a Metro 2 date, which means it's not furnished to Experian by any creditor or any debt collector. It's a date that Experian uses internally on their own disclosure credit reports. The date of status does not appear on TransUnion's reports. It doesn't appear on Equifax's reports. It only is an Experian internal date on their disclosure reports. I put these up here and kind of juxtapose them for a purpose. Number one is to define kind of the difference between real credit reporting dates and those that are not. And then also to define dates that are influential in your credit scores and those that do not. So hopefully you learned a little bit something about dates today, also the difference between real credit reports and disclosure style reports. If you have any questions about these dates or anything else regarding credit, drop them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to get to them. Thanks for talking to me today or listening to me today. We'll talk again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.